Hello world, you are now listening to iHearIC Radio, episode 114, I think. I didn't look it up before I started talking. But my name is Justin Comer, and this is a show where I talk to creative people who live in and around Iowa City, Iowa. It's a show that's been going on, well, it started as a live show way back in 2009, and the radio show began in 2017, and this iteration of the radio show began in September of 2020, because I can't do live shows and I can't go to the radio station. So we're here on Zoom, recording conversations with creative artists who live around here and also are in their homes on Zoom talking to me. If you want to give a little bit of money to the iHearIC project, check out patreon.com/iHearIC, and you'll be able to see these Zoom episodes in video format. You can see our beautiful faces as you hear us. But if you are not interested in giving us money, you're stuck with the audio-only version. You're missing all of the visual cues, all of the facial expressions. And to give a little bit more incentive, I do spend the money that people give us on Patreon to pay people to be on the show. Pay them for their time talking to me because they can't play shows anymore. So we got to make revenue streams where we can. But enough of that crap. Let's get to the meat of the show. I've got a special guest today. You may recall this guy from way back. If you've been a long-time listener of iHearIC Radio, you may have heard him back in April of 2019. The episode I did with the band Rubbur. And if you're watching the video, you can see I'm wearing my Rubbur t-shirt. And today I'm speaking with Clinton Garlock. Hello, Clinton.
Hi, Justin. And yeah, I'm going to keep doing weird faces whenever you talk, so
all right,
hope that doesn't throw you off too much.
No, it'll be a little bonus for the people who are watching the video. Gives them something to look at. And yeah, so I have Clinton on today because, Rubbur is no more. Do you want to catch us up on what happened to Rubbur?
Well, yeah, so it's just, so we broke up Rubbur, basically once the pandemic had hit. Max, who is the drummer, is living with his father right now. He moved out, and his father is a little bit older, and so we couldn't practice. We couldn't get together to practice, and I wanted to do all these kind of like virtual shows as well, and we couldn't get together to do virtual shows either. And I knew Max kind of wanted to go in a different direction because, I mean, he loves playing drums, and I don't know how to play drums at all. But he's also really passionate about hip hop and rap, and I knew he wanted to kind of start doing that. And part of me was just like, well, I feel like I'm kind of holding him back by, kind of making him, or I guess not making him, but making him feel responsible for this kind of rock, band. And I knew he wanted to explore kind of things. He was getting into like Ableton and other kind of stuff like that. And at that point, it was just like I had written like 95% of the music and the lyrics, and it was almost kind of viewed as kind of my solo project anyway. Even though I tried my best to include as many other people as possible. And then when the pandemic hit, we just couldn't do anything else together. And I was like, you know what? Now seems like a natural time to let this split. Either way, we can either keep going through the pandemic and get nothing done and be in the exact same place we are by the time the pandemic is over, if that ever happens,
right.
Or we can, yeah, exactly, or we can just cut it off now. And maybe I had some songs that I wanted to work on and kind of go in a different direction from Rubbur as well. And I was like, well, maybe I'll actually have something going by the time the pandemic has ended. Because live shows is really important to me. And so that would be the main reason that I would want to, stay like in a band and everything. But with the pandemic, I was just like, well, I mean, I'm not even going to be playing any live shows. I mean, what's the point of even being in a band, at that point? So that's why we kind of both went our separate directions. We still hang out, me and Max, and we, play D&D together and stuff like that. But I think we're both kind of happy with how things have ended up.
Yeah, so it's an amicable split. It's not like
absolutely
a fight.
Yeah,
which is good because I mean you're both really chill guys from the time I've spent with you. So I'm glad you're on good terms. And so you've kind of moved on. Rubbur has evolved into a new project, and you're going by the name Upside Down Smiley Face.
Yes, it is my favorite emoji. And so that is my solo project name. And yeah, I wrote 5 songs for it. One was an old rubbur song, or I guess a new rubbur song. And then the 4 others were written after rubbur split. And I recorded that with some new musicians, including Marco, who was previously in rubbur for a little bit, Marco Cacio Tullio. And we got together. I had originally booked a recording session at Flat Black in like January before the pandemic hit, and that was another kind of reason that I decided to disband rubbur. Is like, well, we have this recording session coming up in 2 months by the time by the time the pandemic hit, and like we can't get together to practice, we can't get together to even write the songs. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna cut it off and I'll do what I got to do to get into this recording session. Because I want to release something every single year, so I wasn't gonna skip out on this recording session. So I disbanded rubbur. We had that one song, Funky Magic, which I ended up naming the album after. And then Marco got me in contact with Brendan Higgins, who plays keyboards on the album, and Peter Stoltz, who plays drums. And I wrote the 4 other songs within like a month. We practiced like 3 times. They're all great musicians, and we were able to make it into that recording session and create something great. Like I was totally planning on just going in and doing some vocals or something over some demos, but Marco was like, "No, I'm gonna find you some musicians. We're gonna do this right." And so I can't say thanks enough to Marco for helping me get this whole thing together and helping me write one of the songs actually too. But that's kind of how that all shaped up. With Funky Magic and everything, and Upside Down Smiley Face in general.
Yeah, and Marco and Peter are actually longtime iHearIC veterans. I don't know if you know that, but yeah, I think we first booked them probably back in like fall 2015. And Peter was like, I don't know, 14 or something. he's
Peter
so
was
young.
17 when he recorded Funky Magic with me. Like, he's so good.
Yeah. He's like a prodigy, incredible drummer. Yeah. Is there anything more to the name aside from it just being your favorite emoji?
Well, it's my favorite emoji, and I think it means a lot of different things. Like it can be stoic, it can be playful.
It's an ambiguous emoji, yeah.
Exactly. And so like not only does it have multiple meanings, it kind of shows how things can have different meanings when you look at them from a different perspective. And so kind of the thing that I really try to do with my music is to be as versatile and flexible as possible, and like try to, involve all these different genres into one thing. And so that's why I kind of chose the upside down smiley face, symbol, is because it has so many different meanings all together in one. And I think that kind of represents me and my music as well.
Cool. All right. So there is more to it than it just being your favorite emoji.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at your Bandcamp page now, and you've got periods around the N in upside down smiley face. Is there any meaning behind that formatting? Yeah,
it makes an upside down smiley face. Do you see it?
Oh, okay. So the dots are eyes and the N is the mouth. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to try and just go by .n. And just like be the symbol, but it's like it's really hard to like make that work in a URL. And so I was going to try and get like www.n.com. But that was like $5,000. Yeah. And then it doesn't really work as like a username for a lot of different social media sites, because the dot, when it's in a URL, makes it like a different part of the domain.
Right.
And so, I mean, my goal here, we'll say it here first, is if I get like a huge industry signing, they might be able to pull some strings, and then I could actually go by .n. Or maybe even the emoji itself. And that way they'd have the infrastructure to like actually have that branding throughout. But upside down smiley face with the 2 dots was kind of the best way I could kind of make things consistent throughout everything.
Yeah, and on like the header image on your Bandcamp, there's also the circle around the N and the dots. So I see what you're doing there. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Well, it's good to have goals.
Well, that's just a secret. Don't tell anyone. That's going to be like Oh, his solo act is upside down smiley face. Who's dot and dot? Whoa, who's this
Oh, it'll
new
be two
person?
different identities. Yeah,
Yep. Hmm.
that could be cool too.
Well, it'll be like growing off of it. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the album's called Funky Magic. Are you just calling it an album? Because I know it's a very like short collection of music. I don't know if you're classifying it any specific way.
Technically, I would call it an EP, an extended play. Obviously, I think we both grew up after like the classical album and EP and whatever else was, a real thing. And so, I mean, I think that's kind of up to choice. I can kind of consider an album as just a collection of music, so like maybe even 3 songs would be an album. And so I kind of flip-flop between calling it an EP and an album, just kind of based on the sentence, whether it flows or not. But technically, I would call it an EP.
Okay, cool. It's real short, 5 songs. You can listen to it in like 15 minutes, and I would recommend doing so before listening to us talk about it, because then you'll be familiar with the material.
Right.
I made sure to listen to it earlier today just to make sure it was fresh on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You recorded this at Flat Black, as you said, and that was
shout out to Dana Telsrow. I mean, we already kind of talked about the other musicians on it, but Dana Telsrow was great. Was a great recording engineer. It was the first time I ever had something professionally produced, and he blew my expectations out of the water. And then I also had it recorded or mastered by Crystal Sherman as well, who you probably know as well. So, and I was very pleased with everyone else's work.
Yeah, I think most people would be familiar with Crystal from her work at Gabe's.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you like people to listen to this? Do you have it up on streaming sites?
Yeah, I've got it on all the streaming sites. As far as I know there's hundreds of them. I've got it up on SoundCloud and Bandcamp and AudioMac. I don't know if you've heard about that. It's kind of
I don't think so.
I think it's more geared toward hip hop, but I follow a few kind of hip hop industry heads on Twitter just so I can kind of get a closer idea of the music industry in general, since hip hop is like obviously a really popular genre right now.
Yeah.
And so AudioMac, I think, is kind of more geared toward hip hop, but everyone's saying, oh, if you're releasing new music, put it on AudioMac. I was like, yeah, do it. And so I think, is there anywhere else? Yeah, that's pretty much all the places I have it on, the classic streaming sites like Spotify, Apple Music, and then, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, if you want to listen to it for free. Cause I really think, I don't necessarily think music should be free, but I like being able to provide a free option. Of course, on Bandcamp, you can buy the CD itself, which I hand make the CDs at home, pretty much from scratch. And you can also do the digital download from Bandcamp as well.
Yeah, I purchased the digital download the other day. I think you're charging what, $4 for that? Yeah, $4. You can get the physical CD from him for $9.99 here on Bandcamp. I'm looking at a photo of the CD, and it's a real like quality plastic case and everything. What are you using to make that and put that together?
So a couple years ago, when I was back in Rubbur, and this is actually how I made your shirt as well, I got together with Max and Avery Mossman, who you probably know as well, and we all kind of crowdfunded a printer that can print on CDs, and it also just is a pretty nice printer in general. And so we kind of have a deal where if they ever want something printed, they just hit me up. I mean, I have the printer in my house, so I've made all my merch and all the shirts and stuff with that printer. And so what I do is I buy the jewel case, the plastic jewel case CD blank, and then I buy the CDs that you can print on, and the printer can actually print directly onto the CDs for the CD image. And then I have a huge amount of paper, like professional, premium quality paper that I print onto the paper, and then I cut it all up into the right dimensions and slip the inserts into the CD case, and it makes the CDs are really beautiful. Like, I'm really surprised they turn out that well. And then for the shirts, I just use heat transfer paper as well. You print on directly onto the paper, and then you can transfer it into a shirt with the heat press that I have. So
nice.
That's kind of my whole merch stuff.
Yeah, it's good to take that over yourself. Do all the whole operation is in house. Cool.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about the physical product and how beautiful it looks, where's this art from?
I actually painted that a few years ago on the front cover. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking about.
Yeah, I was in kind of a student government group my sophomore year of college, and we kind of did like it was like a team building activity where we all just kind of got together and painted on canvases,
Hmm.
kind of painted our emotions, and that's what I painted. And I've had that painting for the last couple of years, and I was like, well, it's kind of funky, it's kind of magical. I'll make it the cover for my album. I'm not really a visual artist, but I have had strokes of genius, I suppose. And so that was one of them. So I think Sophia just is laughing. My girlfriend's back here. She heard me say that. She's laughing at me. Strokes of success or strokes of not terribleness. And so I was like, well, I'll just scan that and put it on, make it the album, and we'll see what I have to do for the next time because I don't have anything else in the chamber as far as good art, but I'm pretty proud of that.
You can produce one every 5 years or so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you do have the credit on the Bandcamp page here. It says art by Clinton Garlock, so that's good.
Yep.
And speaking of Sophia, she has a credit on this album too, right?
Yes, she does. In one of the songs, Reggae in the Mountains, at the end, there's this really climactic kind of chorus section. And Sophia Opitz, my girlfriend, and Hannah Fry, who is a popular musician around Iowa City, they both came into the studio with me and added some improvisational kind of chorus parts to that, as well as Brendan Higgins, who played keys. He added some vocals to that as well. And it came out sounding really great.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. I didn't realize that was improvised. That's cool.
Well, so I told them to record the main line, which I had been singing throughout the rest of the song.
Right, which you repeat
once.
several times in the song.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I was like, then just do whatever you want. And so then they took a couple takes each of them just improvising, whatever they wanted over that main line. And then we spliced it all together, made it sound nice. And that's kind of how that chorus part ended up.
Nice, that's great. Well, now that we're like digging into one of the tracks, we should go back to the beginning and maybe like try to do them in order. So let's talk about Just 'Cause.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the rhythm is like pretty wild in this one. It sounds like you're sort of mixing up the meter on this.
Yeah. So this was written. Let's see. This was kind of written halfway before Rubbur and then halfway after Rubbur. But basically, one time Marco came over to jam with Rubbur, me and Max, and he had this riff that was in 7/4, and that was the main riff of the song. And I mean, we had a good time jamming on it. I wanted to make a song out of it. And so once Rubbur ended, I kind of wrote the rest of the song. I asked Marco if it was okay if I wrote something over that 7/4 riff. And I was like, okay, you got this riff in 7/4. What can this song be about? I was like, why is it in 7/4? Well, just cause, And it's like, okay, why don't we just make the whole song just a bunch of different time signatures? Why? Just because we can. And so it starts in 7/4, the riff that Marco wrote. And then after the 7/4 section, I wrote I think it's either in 3/8 or 3/4 section after the 7/4. And then it goes back to the 7/4 and goes back to the 3/8. And then it goes to 4/4, back to 7/4, or back to 3/4 or 3/8, and then back to 7/4. And so like the whole thing is just like, why not? Because we can. And then obviously Peter's an amazing drummer. He was able to stick through it the whole time. And there's lots of different kind of other cool parts. Like I had a rap verse in there. Why? Just cause. And then after that, I have like this kind of like diva-esque falsetto section, and I just kind of wanted to like really show the breadth of my voice as a singer, as well as kind of my musicianship as far as songwriting with all those different with all those different tempo changes and everything. And obviously the Brendan was doing some really cool things on keys, and Mark was doing some really cool stuff on bass as well on that song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's in terms of your vocal performance, that's something I noticed, as this is kind of an evolution from what you were doing in Rubbur, where in Rubbur there were like some songs where you were like singing at the top of your range for like most of the song, and then there's other songs where it's just like the lyrics are all like packed in there. You're just like extremely quickly going through all the words.
Right.
And then on this album, it seems like you're doing like a little bit of all of it all the time. You're just like sliding in and out of these different like vocal styles that you've practiced and developed, I guess.
Yeah, I will say this album or this EP is definitely the most vocally challenging. And part
Yeah.
of that, again, is because of the pandemic. I've never actually played any of these songs live. So I've never gotten a chance to try them out live. And so, like, when we were learning how to play it, when I was teaching it to Brendan and Marco and Peter, we would record the like demos of it, and then I would record my vocals over the demo. And so that way I could kind of get away with, using my falsetto more or not having to worry about playing at the same time. And so I still have to practice these songs to even play them live, which, of course there's no live shows going on right now. And, yeah, which I haven't done yet. But yeah, this is definitely my most vocally challenging EP, partly because I just haven't had a chance to actually I haven't needed to actually play these, live at the same time as with other musicians and stuff. So, I mean, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. I do some really cool stuff on it, but also once COVID's over, we'll see if I can actually pull these songs off. Might have to bring them down a couple keys or something like that.
Yeah. Have you tried, I mean, when you recorded them, were you going through in one take or doing like bits and pieces of it?
We were doing bits and pieces of it. So we all recorded the instruments in one day, and then Marco and Brendan and Peter went out to get lunch, and I stayed back to cut some vocals. And then they came back and we recorded the rest of the instruments. Then I came back the next day and did my guitar overdubs and did my vocals. And basically it was like, I'll sing for as long as I can until my voice gives out. Then I'll do some guitar dubs. And then once my voice comes back, we'll do some more vocal work. So that's kind of how that all shaped up.
So this was all 2 days?
Yep, we did this all in 2 days.
Yeah. That's a pretty packed 2 days, I think.
Yeah, I was pretty tired at the end of it.
Yeah.
And we got done with it just like right at the last second. It was like there was 10 minutes before. I remember telling Dana, "Hey, we won't go past 5, but just give me a couple more takes on this song."
Yeah.
And I took a couple more takes, got it to what I wanted to be. We called it good. And then, we did some mixing and mastering a month or so later.
Mm-hmm. What about the lyrics? Let's talk about the lyrics a little bit. As I mentioned, you tend to have a lot of lyrics in a short amount of time. Like one of these, I think it's Spacewalk I was looking at earlier. There's like 14 paragraphs listed here. And this 2-minute and 42-second song. So you tend to have very wordy songs. It's and I don't mean that as either praise or criticism, really, just an observation.
Yeah.
So the lyrics to Just Cuz, obviously there's the impetus that you were talking about, like you're playing with these time signatures just cuz it's fun. Why not? Is there anything more to this song lyrically?
Well, lyrically, Just Cuz was one of the more difficult ones to write. I think Spacewalk was the most difficult lyrically one. And I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. I think you did notice that I do have a lot of lyrics, and part of that is because, like, really as an artist, like, I'm a writer at heart. Like, that's what kind of got me into art when I was a kid, was reading books. And I was like, I wanted to be an author, but I also could sing. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll be a singer, and that way I can, write lyrics and then also sing them. And I was like, well, I can't write songs if I'm just a singer, so then I need to play guitar. So that's kind of how that all came from. And as you know, I'm a reporter for the Daily Iowan as well. And so that's kind of where some of that, I have a degree in journalism and an undergraduate certificate in writing, in creative writing. And so that was always kind of my most natural talent, I guess. And then like music, I almost feel kind of a bit like an imposter when it comes to music, because I can tell that music doesn't really come as naturally to me as it does, some of the people that I play with. That's why I practice as much as I can. But as far as like as an artist, like kind of lyrics and writing has kind of always been my what I consider kind of my natural talent. But as far as Just Cuz goes, Just Cuz was really difficult to write because I wanted to make it really kind of vague and not like mean much, because like the song is more about, the song's really abstract. It's about this feeling of like freedom and being able to have agency and kind of do what you want to do. And so like that first line, like, just cuz I can do it like this, don't mean that I can't do it like that. What does that mean? It doesn't really mean anything. And so if you like
without context, it's whatever.
Exactly. Like you read through the lyrics and like, doesn't it like, it feels good, like that's one of the lyrics, but it's like, like what feels good? It's just like just cause, So I'm like as a person with who as like I have a journalism degree, and what we learned in journalism school was like you have to be really focused and really like to the point with your lyrics, and I'm pretty good about that with my other songs. But this song was such a challenge because I was specifically trying not to like say something. I was just trying to say things, and
Yeah.
kind of have this abstract kind of lyricism, as opposed to like, Spacewalk and some of the other songs. They're very clear what the songs are actually about based on the lyrics.
Mm-hmm. So it's intentionally ambiguous. And that kind of goes along with, the name of your project.
Right.
The upside down smiley face. You don't know what that means either.
Mm-hmm. And like you can guess, and like in context, it makes sense, but like there's a lot of different ways you can go with it.
Mm-hmm. Is that an intentional connection? The upside down smiley face, and then just cause the ambiguous lyrics?
Not intentional by me, but now that you pointed out, like I think it's definitely something that has significance. I personally believe that people can kind of take whatever they want from art, and it's the artist's job to kind of to communicate what they're trying to communicate. But if someone else takes something from the art that's completely different from what the artist was trying to communicate, then that's totally fair. It's like art is a kind of a user experience, also a creator's experience too. So it's like there's lots of different ways you can kind of view it.
Yeah, well, it's a nice synchronization anyway. That there's sort of a similar theme between your opening track and the name of the project itself.
Right.
And then after that, you have the title track, which is Funky Magic. And well, actually, this one has fewer lyrics relatively, because you repeat yourself.
This is the least amount of lyrics. Yeah. No, I think it's just 16 bars of Funky Magic at the beginning. And that's kind of supposed to sound like a bit of a chant, like, you're going around the college, you're like funky magic, and this is kind of another one of those more abstract songs. It's like, I wanted to kind of like, Funky Magic is kind of about like the human experience of just like all these different things of what being a human is, and kind of gets it into the second chorus, where it's like in being and feeling and bleeding and screaming, like these are all, really human emotions and human actions. And so like Funky Magic is kind of just like that, the thing about, it's like being, it's all about humanity and just kind of that joy of being a human, and kind of all the emotions that kind of come with that.
Okay, so it's, I don't know how else to sum that up. It's like not. It's more about like the general feeling of being alive, like things that you can't quite put into concrete terms.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, earlier when we were talking about the last song, you mentioned that you feel that music doesn't come as naturally to you as to your collaborators. And I'm looking at the genre tags that you put on this album. It's rock, blues, funk, fusion, jazz, and rock again. Yeah, you got rock on there twice. It's super rock. I didn't realize they would let you use the same tag twice. That's funny. You should just do like rock.
Rock.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's clear from like your composition and like your progressions that you are, if you don't feel that it's coming naturally to you, you at least are interested in exploring like different ways you can go with like harmony, because you're like, it sounds like jazz a lot of the time, which is not easy to like just jump into. Jazz guitar, at least.
Yeah. Jazz. I don't know what I'm doing with jazz guitars. I'm trying to learn. When I said music doesn't come naturally, I don't think it like means I'm always going to be a worse player for that. It's just, no. I feel like I need to work a little bit harder than people who kind of have that natural, musicianship. And so I definitely think I can get to that, the same caliber, but I just personally feel like it takes a little bit more effort for me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm saying like that effort, I guess, is paying off. It sounds like what you want to do, and you're like pushing your boundaries. So that's good.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's like I always kind of because I'm not I've never like had guitar lessons or like I've had singing lessons before,
Hmm.
like classical singing lessons, but never had much like music theory training before. So I always kind of feel like, is this jazzy enough to call it jazz? You know, is it this enough to call it this? Um, and so it's really nice to hear you say that, especially. And you know, I'm always trying to like kind of really blend all these influences because I love jazz music and I love blues music and I love rock music and I love all these different styles of music, and so I really want to be able to blend them together into something that's cohesive and new while still
Hmm.
being true to like the um, I guess the tradition of jazz and blues and rock and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems to me like you're synthesizing your different impulses pretty well, and it comes across like a genuine expression of what you want to express. It's working.
Well, thank you. Awesome, wonderful. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
Yeah. And as I was saying earlier, like it does sound to me like an evolution from Rubbur. Like it's the same kind of music, but it's like you're refining it, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel I'm really proud of these songs, and those Rubber songs are most of the songs that I've had since I was like 17. And when
Hmm.
I came to the University of Iowa for school when I was 19, I was like, okay, I'm going to find a drummer and we're going to play these songs. And it took me years to even find Max, someone
Hmm.
who would like stick with me. And so by the time I actually went around to recording that first Rubber album, it had already been 5 years since I'd written those songs. And then our next album showed kind of what I learned since that time. There's a bit more complex chords and songwriting structures in
Yeah.
Capitalist Bastard.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I really feel like this Funky Magic EP really showcases is kind of the height of what I've learned as a musician. Since I started playing guitar 11 years ago now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And since you brought up Capitalist Bastard, that was a very explicitly political collection of music.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're not doing that quite so much with the lyrics on this album, unless I'm missing some subtext.
No, no. You're totally right. This. I will say this album is a bit of an aberration. There's really not very many love songs on it, and there's
Hmm.
not really many. I guess like political or like kind of like socially conscious. Like it's just kind of music, and
Yeah.
I don't think that's good or bad. It's just kind of what it
Hmm.
is. And to a certain extent, I don't really control what songs I write. It's all about that inspiration. It comes up to me. I think like, oh, this might be a good idea, and then I go with it. With
Hmm.
Capitalist Bastard, we had one song, and I had a pretty good melody line and riff for it. And Max was like, I want this song to be about immigration. I was like, okay, we can do that. And so that's what kind of started the political bent on the second Rubber album, and then obviously Capitalist Bastard. The song itself was a pretty much a very clear indictment of capitalist society, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, I
we had
remember
another
talking
song.
on the show when I had you guys on. It was like, obviously, this is like a negative portrait of Donald Trump himself, but it's
Mhm.
also like a larger, like you
Yeah.
recognize that it's he's part of a trend and part of a system.
Mhm.
It was, yeah, I mean, it was good, like pretty
Thank you.
sophisticated political analysis in terms of
Yeah.
rock music.
Mhm. And I wouldn't say that I'm never going to write a political song again, but I think Capitalist Bastard did kind of hem Rubber into a box for a little
Mm.
bit, because we had our first album, which was just a bunch of love songs that I'd written when I was 17, and
Right.
then we had Capitalist Bastard, which is like a very clear indictment of current society. And so then people kind of thought of us as like this political band. It's like, no, I personally as an artist am like I'm passionate about progressive change and everything, but I have more to say than just that. And so I mean, maybe that was subconsciously why I didn't write any songs like that for this album,
Mhm.
because I didn't want to have to go out of the gate with people thinking, oh, you're the leftist band, because
Right.
I'm not, and like I'm definitely want that to be part of my image and part of my art, but it's not just that, because I mean, there's more to life than power structures, I guess. But just so you know, I have a couple songs written for the next EP or album or whatever it is. One is called Flirting with God, and it will be a satirical take on religion. So we will be getting some social commentary soon. Do not you worry. But yeah, Funky Magic was really apolitical. And I mean, it was emotional, but I guess there wasn't necessarily any like really, you think of like really popular music, like a lot of it is love songs, and there wasn't really any like love songs on there. So that's Funky Magic. That's what kind of what Funky Magic is.
Yeah, it's its own. It defies that kind of like obvious material connection to life. It's a little bit more aloof. It's in the clouds. Yeah, it's in the air. Funky Magic is a feeling.
Exactly.
It's not something that can be expressed through like power structures, criticism of power structures. That's a little bit more real life, I think. Although I just said like Funky Magic is also life. I need to not. It's still real life, but it's not like realism.
Yeah.
If that's a distinction that makes sense to you. Yeah. Getting a little bit more into the magical side of life.
Exactly.
Which is also real, but it's less concrete, as we've discussed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so maybe we should touch on I Know He Knows.
Yeah, so that was definitely the most jazzy song that I've ever written. I'm really proud of it. And it's like that kind of really made me feel like, yes, I'm a jazz musician. You know, I got all these chords and they sound so cool, and you know the melody line is all over the place. And that honestly is kind of the I don't usually write songs like this or this way, where I actually wrote the lyrics first, and then the kind of a natural kind of melody came with it, and then I was able to put the chords underneath it. And usually I come up with chords and then I'm able to fit a melody on top of it. But I was just at work and I started scrawling the first couple lyrics. I was like, oh, this is good. And I was like, how would these lyrics sound? And I was like, I know he knows. I know. I'm not going to sing it on your podcast, but it's like it just came really naturally. And then I've been working on my extension of my jazz chords, and like they just fit really well with the melody line that I've been composing. And that song actually came together really really easily, even though it might be kind of one of my more complex and harmonic songs. And like I said, I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, lyrically, this one seems to come closest to being like in the realm of a love song. It seems, Though again, it's very like beating around the bush. Like you're not really talking about it yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's about getting your heart broken and being cheated on. So I guess that might be considered a love song.
Yeah. I mean, it seems that way, but it's like you never, as far as I remember, you never like explicitly say that's what's happening. It's just that like I know he knows that I know.
Exactly. And yeah, I wanted to leave it kind of ambiguous. Like you don't really know what I'm talking about. You don't really know what is going on. Like you can, and I wrote it so that you can kind of assume that it has to do with like, a romantic relationship. But
it seems like you are, yeah.
Yeah, but there are obviously, I mean not obviously, but there are some other things that that song kind of means to me. And another thing that I'm really kind of proud of with that song is I purposely didn't use any pronouns for like who this potential other romantic interest might have been. Like I know it obviously I know he knows. So there's that. But like the person that the supposed that the narrator I guess would have been in a relationship with, that the he intruded on, is never identified. And so that I'm kind of trying more, especially with kind of songs that deal with like interpersonal relationships, is trying to like be careful about how I use pronouns so that more people can kind of get something out of it. Instead of like, he was a girl, she was a boy, she said, see you later, girl, or whatever. I don't know how that song goes, but it's like that boy, is like that is heterosexual relationship between like a man and a woman, from the, I guess it is from the woman's point of view, and like you get a lot of songs.
Lavigne's point of view.
Exactly. You get a lot of songs, written from a man's point of view about, this woman, and like that kind of is like, how do women feel about that? Listening to this song with, like through the male gaze, and how do people who aren't heterosexual, feel about that as well? And so that's why I've purposely left the kind of gender of the romantic partner ambiguous, so that more people would be able to get something out of the song.
Yeah, and I don't think you refer to that person like directly at all, do you?
Yeah, and that was another thing. I was like, part of the song was like, oh, I'm so like heartbroken that I'm not even going to talk about this person. I'm just going to talk about the other person who
right, it's
fucked
all
it all
focused
up.
on the other one.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of he's and I's, but never like this other one you don't know. It's a shadowy figure.
Exactly.
Interesting. You mentioned earlier that you've never like taken guitar lessons. So your voice lessons, that's like your only musical training?
Yeah, and so I was in choir all through high school, and I did chorus, or I did choir in college as well. And I had a professional voice teacher for a couple years, and we did like classical repertoire, like Schubert and stuff like that. And so most of my musical training is classical voice. I guess I did do some classical voice classes, I guess, in college as well. I did take guitar lessons for a couple months when I was like 16, and I was like, hey, I want to learn music theory. And he was like, okay, look at these, staff lines and play E, F, G, A. And I was like, nah, this is boring. This is not what I'm looking for. I'd already kind of learned that kind of stuff in choir and through my professional voice lessons. So I kind of already knew how like the staff and everything worked. And I was like, I need to learn how to construct chords and like how scales work. And we just weren't getting that point. So I stopped, going to guitar lessons after a few months, and I didn't really gain much out of it. So that's kind of what I say. I'm kind of self-taught.
Yeah, that's kind of disappointing, because it would seem like if somebody wanted to skip ahead of the fundamentals, like that would be more fun. Like it's more fun to teach the more complicated stuff, but
yeah,
guess they weren't interested.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm pretty pleased with my guitar progression so far. So
yeah, so when you're talking about like learning your jazz extensions and stuff, like where are you getting the information for that?
Online. So like I guess saying I'm self-taught completely is not necessarily fully true, because I'm looking at YouTube videos and going online and reading Wikipedia articles about music theory. I guess it kind of is up to the beholder about whether that's considered self-taught or not.
I think it still counts. I don't think people say they're self-taught, meaning like they just like
made it all up themselves.
A chamber, and they just like intuited everything with their own mind.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I think I think the hardest part, I'm on a few music theory pages on like Facebook and stuff, and like a lot of people will ask, like a lot of beginners will ask a lot of questions. Where do I start with music theory? And I think the hardest part with music theory is like just understanding the terminology, like the intervals and everything like that. And once you have that basic, intervallic understanding and the understanding of the major scale, that's when you can kind of just start like researching everything else. And it took me like several years before I was like fully comfortable understanding the major scale and the intervals. But once you have that kind of basic terminology, then you're like, okay, what else do I need to know? I need to know how to construct my extended chords. So I look up how to build these extended chords, the 9th, the 11th, and the 13th, and and you can just figure it out from there once you have that terminology. And so I think that's where kind of the advantage of having a teacher is at the beginning, to where you can like, this is how, there's music theory, and then there's like how you talk about music theory. You need to understand how you talk about music theory before you can even, get into the music theory part. And it can be really hard just starting out, trying to figure out, what is a minor second? What is a ninth? What is, a perfect fifth? And how does this all relate? What is a harmonized scale? And stuff like that. And so I'm grateful that I've had the internet and I've been able to look that stuff up and figure it out myself and kind of progress from there. But I'm on those pages and I'm trying to help the best I can. But there's only so much you can do in a comment box where you say, okay, well here's how the intervals work. Here's what you need to practice. This kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I found that. So let's see. When I was a teenager, my grandma gave me a guitar. And I started like looking at chord charts and like figuring out how to play guitar a little bit on my own. And then I took a music theory class in high school, and I felt that the two like kind of informed each other very well, because the guitar with the frets, it's so visual. Like every fret is a half step or minor second. And then when you're constructing the chords from the chord charts, it's like you sort of like you have the sound of a major chord in your ear, and like you start to recognize like a fifth and a third. So I felt like that helped a lot when I started learning more complicated music theory, because I had like just sat alone playing guitar in my room and just sort of familiarized myself with the connection between the hand and the ear.
Now that I've learned more about music theory, like I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the guitar's layout. Like obviously the guitar is where I feel most comfortable, playing. And it's really, like you said, it's really easy. Like you just have the half steps, they're all laid out, but it's those chord shapes that are just so hard sometimes, because you can't build, like if you're thinking like a major seventh chord, like 1, 3, 5, 7, you can't just build that on a guitar very well. You have to, the chord that I usually go to is like 1, 5, oh man, I can't even think of 1, 5, 7, 5, 3, 5, 1. And just like, that's like so wild. And like, I really think like kind of as a keyboardist, where I'm like, okay, if we're doing a major seventh, which is 1, 3, 5, 7, if we want to invert it, we can just put the 3 on the bottom over here. Or if we want to have, the fifth on the top, and put the fifth on the top, and it's like really linear. Whereas guitar is so shape focused, which is like, lets you come up with some really cool chords and shapes, but it also kind of, hinders you, where you have to like memorize all these different shapes just to kind of like do what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and the keyboard is just kind of like one plane. Like here, I've got one here.
Yep.
It's beautiful. All like you said, linear, right? Yeah, linear is a good word for it, because it's like this note's here. I can get the fifth here. I can get the ninth here. It's all in a row. It's all I can see it here. But then the guitar is like 6 planes, and you only have 4 ways to alter the planes.
Yep. And your fingers are only so long. I was explaining it to one of my friends the other day. It was like, it's like having 6 keyboards at once.
Right.
But only being able to play them like... And
you can only play 1 key on each of the keyboards.
Exactly. It's a total mess. But it's really cool. You can do really cool sounds with it. There's the vibrato. It's more portable. So like I said, love-hate relationship with the guitar. I'm not going to stop playing guitar anytime soon, but some days I wish I had started with keyboards, but I'll stick with the guitar for now.
Yeah, I mean, the guitar is one of the cooler instruments, but it is pretty complicated when you actually like get down to it.
Yeah.
And when you're playing chord changes, like very precise movements very quickly. And like if you screw it up, people will hear it right away.
Yep.
It's a challenge. The next song on your album is called Reggae in the Mountains, which we already discussed a little bit with the choir at the end. And I mean, obviously you're playing reggae like right at the beginning. You've got the offbeat like keyboard chords there. But tell me more about this song. Where did it come from? What's it about? So
one time, this kind of came from Marco as well. I was hanging out with Marco one time, and this was back when we first started hanging out and playing music together. And he was like, and he's always showing me different reggae music and stuff, and I like reggae music too. And one day he was like, I just want to write a reggae album. I was like, all right, we can do that.
A whole album.
And so yeah, and so I kind of went home that day, and then I kind of started getting the idea for the song in my head, like just Reggae in the Mountains, pretty simple. And I was like, okay, and I can have a little reggae riff on the E up here. And then I showed that to Marco because like I wanted to kind of be a thing for us to like kind of bond over, like this reggae song. And so I showed it to Marco. He's like, "That's not reggae enough." I was like, can you help me make it more reggae?" He's like, "Yeah, do this, do this, do this." And so that's kind of where that kind of song came from. And it's all, that song is all about, relationships and forgiveness and togetherness as like, as people. And so like I think the way it was written kind of like mirrors that, where I was trying to be closer to Marco, like as a musician and as a friend, and then also that song is like all about people coming together. And it's about forgiveness, very explicitly, but it's about people coming together in a society and being happy for one another, basically.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It starts off and it seems like somebody has exiled himself to sing reggae in the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at the end, it starts with like the personal relationships reforming. And then you list the school teachers, the Sunday preachers, and then it's more like Richard Scarry, Busy Town.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad I was able to paint that picture. That's what I was going for.
Yeah, and then it ends with the vocal stuff, which is very nice. Like almost, I would have been tempted to make this the last track on the album.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I've been reading a lot, especially with an EP, where and I think I kind of fell into this trap with Rubbur. Is I had my best songs like later. And a lot of people are saying that you should, really pack those first couple tracks to get people's interests. I guess this is the fourth track.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to make my best songs first. And so, I personally, in my opinion, at least, like I think the album itself kind of goes with the best songs first and the not as good ones last. And I really love Reggae in the Mountains, but it's like I wouldn't want to start with it because it kind of has that slow build until get that beautiful climactic finish. And so like when it's kind of in the middle of the album, then you're like, okay, we're listening to music, it's all good, it's got a nice beat, and then it kind of builds into something, as opposed to like kind of starting and kind of just like kind of in like, obviously like Just Cause is a really like bombastic like beginning. It's like that really hooks people. And so by the time they get to the Reggae in the Mountains, like, okay, we've been listening to music for what, 8 minutes now? I don't know how, they're all pretty short songs. But it's like that, you kind of more into the lull of the music and the song, and then that kind of gives you a more natural build up than just starting kind of from 1 and going to 10, as opposed to starting at like 10. So that's kind of why I put that as the fourth track.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't consider this opener energy. I wouldn't like judge, especially I wouldn't judge someone else's music in terms of like the quality from start to finish, but I do think the energy definitely makes sense to put Just Cause first.
Right.
Yeah, it's like punching you right at the beginning.
I originally had Funky Magic first, and I was like, nah, Just Cause needs to be there. Like that's how it's got to be. Yeah,
and it's also the shortest song of the collection, which is, it kind of makes sense as like an introduction. Like it's there and then it's gone, and then here's the rest of the music. And yeah, I don't know, something about the way that Reggae in the Mountains ends, though. It's just like that could be the conclusion. But then you go on to Sleepwalk, which is kind of like, so now that I'm thinking about it like narratively, Reggae in the Mountains is like, it builds up, as you were saying, and then it's just kind of like a really majestic ending to that song. And it's like, I don't know, camera pans up to the sky or something.
Yeah. Like I really would have loved to end the EP with that really beautiful, like harmonious choir, but it's just like that, like narratively, it just doesn't work as much, because then you're like talking about space first. There's space and then mountains, so we're kind of like really like the rest of the songs are really human and really down to earth, and we go back to space and then we're back to the mountains. Whereas like this is kind of like a more natural kind of ramp up, where we're talking about humanity and humans, and then we're at the top of this mountain, and then like you said, pan up to the space.
Then you're up. Yeah, you're up in space. Yeah. And then it's just kind of like a sci-fi story, pretty much. So how did this start? Where did you start with this song?
So I had this riff, the main riff in the verse, and I just didn't know what to do with it, and I literally just beat my head into a wall for weeks trying to come up with lyrics for this. And I ended up coming up with the verse as well, but I still had no lyrics for it, or the chorus as well, and I still had no lyrics for it. And so I had these two really good kind of chord progressions and riffs, but I just couldn't think of anywhere to go with them. And I like every day I would just sit down on my computer and try and come up with something. And I had all these different versions. And then one time I was drifting off to bed, and I was like, it's just like, what if you're like out in space and like and because like the way the riff kind of sounds to me is like you're kind of like walking, through something, but like, and you kind of have like a chip on your shoulder and you feel really cool. Like that's kind of what that main riff kind of feels like to me. And I was trying to make it really like, it always ended up being so corny. But then I was like, as I was falling to sleep, I was like kind of thinking like, as you crest, this planet, and you're kind of just like in your spaceship, and you're outside your spaceship, kind of floating around. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm out here in space. Okay, this is cool. It's like, and it's like, got up from bed, and I was up to like 2 a.m. writing these lyrics for Spacewalk, and I was like, yes, this is exactly what it needs to be. It still has that grounded, walking, feeling to it, but you're also in space, and you also has that ethereal kind of magic, I suppose, to it. And so that's kind of where that came from. And once I had that idea, the lyrics all just kind of came out. Like I said, like this is the most difficult lyrically to write, just because I just couldn't think of a good place to go with it. But once I had, the idea for Spacewalk, I was like, yes, we'll make this a song about, like space, a sci-fi journey, basically. And that's kind of what it ended up being.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, it's an abduction, right?
Kind of. Yeah, I'll kind of
maybe less like against your will and more of like a cooperative abduction.
Yeah, I'll give you the whole kind of narrative here. So the song is about a astronaut who's up in space, and he is having trouble sleeping because his circadian rhythm is off, because the sun, like you can't tell when it's time to go to sleep because the sun is always up. And so so he's sleep deprived, and so he starts having these hallucinations about aliens. And so that's where the aliens come in. He's just so sleep deprived that he has these hallucinations. And then I guess the song later kind of implies that maybe he kind of got ejected from the spacecraft and was rescued either by the aliens or by his own spacemen, I guess. And like, but the aliens are still with him afterwards. So like, were they real the whole time? Did he have brain damage from being sleep deprived, or being, out in the vacuum of space for too long, and he's still hallucinating, or I wanted to kind of leave it ambiguous, but that's kind of where the song kind of begins, like that. The very first lyrics. I don't know if you have the lyrics up right now, but it's hard to know when to sleep when the sun's always in one place. It's hard to know when to wake when stars are always shining. And it's like, and that's when the aliens first come. And it's like, I don't know. It's hard for me to stay awake. It's hard for me to sleep. And now like these aliens are here. Where'd they come from? We don't know.
Yeah. And if you wanted to, you could connect that to, again, the larger theme of like ambiguity. Mm-hmm. Like you don't know what time it is because your context is all off.
Exactly.
Yeah. So really, you've got kind of a cohesive collection here, if you look at it through that lens.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, like I don't really control when the inspiration strikes and what the songs kind of end up being about, but I'm really pleased with the narrative of this whole EP and how everything kind of came together, because it feels really natural, even though there's a lot of different topics and a lot of different even styles of music on this EP, but it all seems like it's grounded in something.
Yeah, it is like varied, but it's also it's not like you're stuck in a box, but it's like it's all within a certain boundary, despite being a good variety of sounds.
Right.
It all makes sense together. I suppose that's just like it's because you have a band and you're all playing together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody's good at what they're doing, so it all sounds right.
Yeah, I like I said, I can't thank Marco and Brendan and Peter enough. Like they're all amazing musicians. They all learn the songs so quickly, put in the effort, put in the work. We practiced 3 times as much as we could before the recording session. Given the COVID limitations, and like I said, they're amazing musicians. They were able to get it all together, and we got in there. We did all the instruments in one day, and then I just had to come back for some vocals, and so yeah, I'm really, like I said, I'm just really happy with how this all came together. It just really came out really perfectly.
Yeah, it's really nice. Again, it's only like 15 minutes long, so everybody, if you listen to this podcast, which is like an hour, you should at least at least go listen to it on Spotify or something, because it's shorter than this, and then it will make everything we talked about make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably a good place for us to wrap up.
Awesome.
You said you want to release music every year, so I guess we can expect something from you sometime in the next few months, perhaps?
That is my hope. So what I'm thinking right now is that I'll probably try and do another kind of shortish EP like this. Peter, I'd love to work with Peter again because he's an amazing drummer. He might be going to California for college. And so he might be leaving in January. And so my hope is that I'll get Peter back in the studio early January. Even if we just have to cut the drums and do the instruments later, like that's fine. We can always do that. But yeah, like I nothing's set in stone right now, but if everything goes well, like I said, I already have a couple songs written, and I already have a lot of other kind of song ideas. You kind of do the same thing where we have this recording session in a couple months. I'll finish up the songs. We'll get together and practice it. And maybe we'll have some music recorded by January, which would be awesome, because then I could probably release something in like summer or even spring, and then I'll have a whole year to actually write a whole album or something like that. But if it doesn't work out, that's totally fine. It's not even 2021 yet, and I've already got some pretty good ideas for songs and a few fully written. So yeah, I'm hoping to release something next year. For now, like I just want to kind of keep riding on the funky magic wave. But yeah, that's what I've got planned for the future. We'll see when the shows start coming back and when things actually start happening again.
If we're lucky, you may get some practice performing these live.
Hopefully,
within the next year, we can pray.
Yeah.
So I know you've got upsidedown.n.smileyface.com, so people can check that out. That's got links to all of your social media and that stuff. Anywhere else you want people to look for your stuff?
Yeah, upsidedown.smileyface.com is probably the best place. I haven't updated it since I released the album, so I'll get on that tonight. But yeah, upsidedown.smileyface.com is pretty much going to be the hub where you can, get links to your favorite social media or, streaming sites, whatever streaming website you use, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, Funky Magic should be on there. So, feel free to give it a spin. And if you want to buy it, it's on Bandcamp for either physical or digital download. I'm working on being able to take orders directly from my site, but for now, Bandcamp is the hub for that. But I will, follow me on my social media. You'll find it on my website, and you'll get updates for when the next album comes out, when you're able to buy it directly from me, all that fun stuff.
Awesome. And if you're listening to this and you're not already familiar with the program, you can find everything that we've ever done under the iHearIC banner at iHearIC.com. It's iHearIC.com. Again, I've been uploading video versions of all of these to the Patreon, which you can get on for as little as $1 per month. And all the money that I bring in through there is funneled out to the people that come on the show, because we can't do live shows, so we've got to do something, right? And a little bit of, I guess I'll do a personal plug while we're here. I just released an episode of Rock Hard Caucus, my politics podcast, with the local journalist Aaron Calvin, and I'm pretty proud of the conversation. So I think as much as I can boost that, I probably should. So go check it out, everybody. Thanks. And actually, yeah, I want to end with some of your music at the end of this. So what should I put here?
Spacewalk might be good. Just Cuz might be good. Yeah, probably either of those two.
You did the music video for Just Cuz, right?
Yep.
Maybe I could include a clip of that here.
There you go. That's a good idea.
All right, well, we'll do that. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Clinton, thank you for joining me on the show.
Absolutely.
All right, have a good night, man. See you later.
See ya.
Just 'cause I can do it like this, don't mean that I can do it like that. Just 'cause I like it like this, don't mean that I don't like it like that. So what if I'm the only one? Even all alone, I'm still having fun. Who cares if they can't understand? Don't need someone else to tell me I can. Just 'cause I can do it like this, don't mean that I can do it like that. cause I make it up as I go along. Don't make it wrong, I might be faking or breaking the rules. Just play along, I know that every little piece has gotta fit in every little place. And if someone doesn't fit, you gotta try to give a little bit of space. Or erase it, retrace it, replace it. Copy, paste, never waste it, always save it just in case. Just cause I can do it like this